Today I want to take a few minutes and talk about why we decided to make our house out of concrete.
You see Buttercup? Is Daddy coming? Hi, sweetie.
When we used to live in our city house, we'd go to the library quite frequently, and just in browsing one of the shelves, I think it was all about home building, and I've always been interested in just construction and building things. It's always fascinated me. As a kid, I helped build a chicken coop, and I think that was the beginning for me. So in just looking through that section of the library, I came across a book by Thomas L. Pell. He lives up in Montana, and he built a beautiful big home, well, several now, but with his own two hands. And that was so inspiring to me. I mean, I'd always sort of intuitively known that anything can be done by me, regardless of what skills I now have, because I can learn those skills. I've always tried to fight against the notion that that things are best left to the professionals. I hate that phrase, and I hate that idea. Because what is a professional if it's not just somebody that learned a skill, right? And I'm a human being just like the professionals are, and I can learn the skill the same as they did. And nowadays it's so easy to learn new skills. My idea was that if I wanted to do something, I could always do it. There was a way to do it. Not everybody believes that way, as I'm sure you know. If you've ever had a dream, people can't wait to squash it because they didn't live their dream, and that's the only reason. People that are living their dreams feel the same about their dreams as you do about yours. And this was one of my dreams, was to build my house from the ground up. Getting back to Tom L. Pell's book, he introduced an idea to me that I had heard about it before, but I didn't know much about it. It's in one of our other books called Back to Basics. It's an old book from the 70s. But it's this idea of forming up a concrete or stone wall. But basically, if you can build a form that's just a couple feet high, and do that on both sides, and then fill up that form with cement, then you've just built a wall. And if you happen to put stones on the outsides of that form, or sorry, against the sides of the form, and then infill, backfill it with concrete and rebar, and then put a little bit of, allow some of it to seep through the stones in between, then not only have you just built a wall, but you've built a stone wall, a concrete wall. And then the next day, when the concrete has hardened enough that it'll hold its own weight and something else besides, you take the form off and you restrap it on a little bit higher, or you put another form on top of that while the other section is curing. So that is what's known as the Slipform method of making a concrete wall. So the Slipform method. And again, I had seen this before, but I had never seen it in a case study. In a single instance, where somebody had actually utilized it and documented it, like Tom L. Pell does in his book. And he learns so many other skills and shares all of them. He's so giving and generous. And so, great ideas in that. I highly recommend the book. He also has a wonderful website where he continues to share other ideas for free and other case studies of people who have made their own concrete houses and using that method. Okay, another book by Rob Roy. It's called Earth Sheltered Houses. I've always liked the idea of building the house out of something massive. People build underground, for example, to take advantage of the storage power, the thermal storage power of the Earth. The idea being that, well, the fact being that the Earth is more or less a constant temperature. If you go down 6 or 8 feet, it generally stays about the same temperature year-round, whether it's the heat of summer or freezing cold outside. You know, anything that has mass and weight to it is going to store heat or coolness. It stores its own temperature longer than, say, something that's lightweight, like a piece of foam, which doesn't store its heat for very long at all. So that is another very enjoyable read. We didn't want to necessarily build underground. We like bright windows. We like a nice airy feel to the house. But we wanted to somehow take advantage of that same thermal mass. It is still the same principle. And we have, I don't know, I estimated at one time it was like 66 tons of concrete just in the walls on this first floor. We have another 15 tons in the floor. This house is actually insulated against the ground below and to the sides and against the outside. So I've made a very, very thick concrete house, and we've got insulation on the outside. It's 4-inch poly iso, and we've got 2 inches of XPS or EXPS, the blue and pink stuff that you see. We've got 2 inches of that below the slab. So we've got all this mass, 70 or 80 tons of concrete that doesn't want to change its temperature very easily. Now that can be a bad thing. If you were to leave the door open in the winter for a week, then all of your concrete would be very, very cold, and it would probably take you a month to heat it back up to a good temperature. But our idea was that we would get the house just to the ideal mass, make it just heavy enough that, and this is still a goal because we haven't accomplished this yet, but the idea is that we could make it just massive enough that by the time winter rolls around, it will have heated up just enough from the summer heat that it will coast us through the winter. And by the time it's just starting to feel a little bit cold in late winter, early spring, that's when the outside temperature is starting to get warm up, and it'll start to regulate that. Now that takes some fine tuning, and we're still definitely working on that. But that's the end goal. Okay, on the artistic side of things, and now concrete lends itself really well to artistry because it's sculptural. You can make it into any shape you want, and it's so hands-on. I love it. It's so enjoyable to work with. So this is our inspiration for the artistic part of our concrete house. There is a castle by the name of Font Hill. It's in Pennsylvania. Off the top of my head, Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Henry Chapman Mercer was a guy after my own heart for sure. So Mr. Mercer took an idea and literally jotted it down in notebooks using crayon. Unbelievable. Love it. He also made small models out of plaster. So this was his grand plan for his house, and he wanted it partially as a home and partially as a little bit of a showcase museum for his tiles that his factories made. But he also traveled the world and collected art, and he didn't want his art collection, drawings and etchings, to ever burn up. But the best solution he found was to build a house out of completely fireproof materials. The floor, the ceiling, the walls, everything structural is 100% reinforced concrete. And this is back when the idea of reinforcing concrete with steel was a brand new idea. Concrete had been around for a long time, but again, that idea of reinforcing it with steel was brand new, and he saw immediately the possibilities with that. I want to meet him someday after I die, maybe. No, he died a long time ago, but in making our concrete house, I did want to build it myself First of all, because it saved a lot of money. Our entire budget for this house was $20,000. It was a complete demolition and rebuild. However, it was only one wall at a time. So we did, in fact, rebuild the entire house, and we are in the process of that, I should say. We're about 80% finished with the ground floor. Completely rebuilt, completely dug up from the footings, and I had to take out the old original stones that were crumbling and had shifted and were causing problems. And I poured a new footing using concrete that I hauled with a wheelbarrow and with 5-gallon buckets, and using concrete that I mixed myself with purchased bags of Portland cement at the store, mixed with sand and gravel that I either gathered or had trucked in. So, a lot of work, but it did save a ton of money. Again, I said our budget was $20,000. It would have cost $40,000 to have a concrete truck come and pour forms, or to pour the concrete in forms. So the other thing besides the money savings was the fact that we could recreate our whole idea and our redesign. We just redesign any given part at any given time as soon as we were doing it. And let me tell you, we did that so many times. Well, we'd be pouring the footings for a pillar. And then before we ever got to the point where we were making the pillar that would, the part of the pillar that would be above ground or above the floor level, we probably changed the design of it at least 3 or 4 times. Changed the shape, changed the size, changed whether it was doubled up or round or octagonal. It was really nice having that. That's fine. We've got our pot steaming in the background all of a sudden. So we were able to be very artistic with it, very kind of fly by the seat of our pants. We had a grand plan in mind, but the only thing that had to be a constant was that the concrete would hold itself up and the rest of the house that was going to go on top of it, which at the time was going to be 100% concrete. So we engineered and sized everything down at the bottom to hold up 2 other stories, complete stories made out of concrete. So this house is extremely over-engineered. I love that. I'm very proud of that fact. There's a lot of extra work, but to put in 16-inch thick walls down at the bottom. If there were a fire in here, there would be virtually nothing for it to even burn up. So the heat made by it wouldn't ever get to a high point. And there's just something nice about that, about knowing that. So I know I've talked a long time, but basically this is my explanation of why we built our house out of concrete. Artistic reasons, structural reasons, energy reasons, and fireproof reasons. All right.
Yeah.